Are you ready to grow your own larkspur or delphinium from seed, but you're not quite sure how to get started?
Well, if so, that's great because we're going to help you sow those seeds step by step today, indoors and outdoors.
Hi, we're Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden, and we're partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden. But before we get to the seed sowing, did you know that delphinium actually have a great upright branching structure that's perfect for cut flowers? And they're also deer and rabbit resistant.
Yes, and to grow larkspur in your garden, you'll need to find a full sun or partially shaded area that has average, well-draining soil. So before we get started in showing you how to sow your larkspur seeds, there's a couple things we'd like you to know. First, larkspur actually, or also known as delphinium, can be either annual or perennial species, and in general, they are hardy from zones 2 through 11. Now, larkspur can come in many different flower colors, including pink, white, mauve, different shades of blue, and then a whole different kinds of those colors in combinations along with double flowers and bicolors. The larkspur seeds we're going to show you how to sow today are called Rocket Imperial Mix, and this is an annual species of larkspur. It's hardy in zones 3 through 9. This mix will produce flowers of blue, white, violet, and pink, and it has a branching upright form. Where generally larkspur will grow anywhere from 1 to 7 feet tall, the Rocket Imperial Mix will grow up to 48 inches tall. Rocket Imperial Mix is open pollinated and has average water needs, so make sure to keep that soil consistently moist. It'll flower from spring through the summer and adds a lot of texture and some different height characteristics to any garden. Now, Rocket Imperial Mix will grow great in containers, is wonderful in cottage gardens, and makes a great cut flower. And it grows really well with roses or peonies and pairs well with other plants like lupin or stock. Now, once established, larkspur are really drought tolerant and they're deer and rabbit resistant. They also make great pollinator attractors, including for bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies, but they can be poisonous to some animals, including cows.
Like many flowering plants, you can sow your larkspur seeds either indoors or outdoors, depending on what you need to do. For indoor sowing of your larkspur seeds, you can start them 6 to 8 weeks before your average last frost date in your area. This way you can get them started early and get a jump on the season. For outdoor sowing, direct sowing, you can sow your larkspur seeds 1 to 2 weeks after your last frost date to make sure that all frost has passed. And in warmer regions, you can even plant them in the fall to get a really early spring bloom.
Now, when sowing larkspur seeds in general, they can benefit from what's called a moist-cold stratification. This helps break the seed dormancy and actually helps with higher germination rates. Now, this can usually be from 1 to 2 weeks of a moist-cold treatment at 33 degrees to about 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Stratification helps mimic natural cycles when the seeds fall down to the ground in the autumn months and then go through the winter, getting that cold treatment and that moisture to then come back in that spring and then have that treatment to then germinate.
All right, let's get ready to sow these seeds indoors. The first step is to fill your cell trays with pre-moistened either seed starting soil or potting soil. The next step is to get your favorite seed sowing tool, like this seed dibber here, this is our Diby XL, and make small indentations in each cell that are 1/8 of an inch deep. The next step is to drop 1 to 2 seeds in each hole. Carefully cover each hole with a little bit of soil. Lightly mist your seeds with water to get the germination process started. And that's how you sow your delphinium seeds indoors.
Now that your seeds are sown, you'll need to keep them at about 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit and keep those seeds moist. Once you've sown your seeds, make sure to keep them at about 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit and that soil nice and moist so you get a really good germination rate. Once they've germinated, make sure to let them grow and develop at least 2 sets of true leaves. Then you can think about starting to transplant them out into your garden. But before you transplant them, you want to make sure that you have them go through a process called hardening off. And this is when you acclimatize your new plants to your garden. This can happen over about 1 to 2 weeks. And what you do every day is take your seedlings and bring them outside into either a full sun or part shade location for about an hour or two, and then each day after that, keep them outside for about an hour or two longer, and then just keep extending that time that they're out in your garden for that 2-week period until the last 2 days, where you keep them outside during the nighttime. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you can then transplant them out into into your garden, into their new homes. Now that our seedlings are hardened off, we can transplant them out into the garden. We can transplant them into a container like you see here, or out into the garden beds. Space them 10 to 12 inches apart, and the key factor here is to make sure to match the soil level of the seedling to the soil level where we're planting them. After we're done planting them, we just need to water them in thoroughly so they can start growing their new roots and into their new home right here. Okay, we're going to direct sow our seeds outdoors. You can sow them directly into a container or out into the garden bed. It's up to you. Make sure you're using a kind of potting soil or garden soil, something that has some organic matter or nutritional value to it and that drains really well. Now, when sowing your larkspur seeds outdoors, you'll need to space them 10 to 12 inches apart. And so we're going to use our hori-hori knife. Now we'll need to plant the seeds about 1/8 of an inch below the soil surface. And we're going to use our garden dibber right here, a seed dibber, to do that. Make sure to use any of your favorite seed sowing tools to do this. Grabbing some seeds out of the packet, we'll just tap a couple into these holes here. And then we'll cover them up and make sure to water these in, and so they'll start to germinate. Make sure to uniformly water all of the soil in the container or in your garden bed so you'll have a better germination rate and have all that water right where it needs to be around those seeds nice and tight. In the weeks and months to come, you want to make sure to keep your plants consistently watered and keep that soil moist. Also, look out for slugs for your seedlings and your plants, as they are very susceptible. Also, you'll want to stake your plants as soon as possible, because as they continue to grow up and develop those flowers, they're going to get top heavy and they're going to want to fall over or snap those stems, and you don't want that. Make sure to stay on top of your weeding, and to do this, you can mulch around your plants out in the garden or in this container, and it'll help keep that moisture readily available to the plant roots. It's always a good idea for larkspur to fertilize them weekly with a fertilizer that's high in potash. Once your first flush of flowers are done, you can cut these plants back and you'll get a second flush. Larkspur usually don't have too many problems with insects, but they are susceptible to a couple different fungal diseases and mildews like sclerotium, so keep an eye out for those.
If you're growing delphiniums for cut flowers, you can expect the flowers in 85 to 100 days after germination. When you're ready to cut the flowers, make sure that the stems are at least 12 to 18 inches long before you harvest. Harvest in the early morning after watering, when the plants are least stressed and the stems are strong. You can harvest each stem just as the first flowers are beginning to open.
Now, if you need more flower planting, growing, or harvesting tips, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides.
And we hope this video was really helpful for you in sowing your own larkspur seeds. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you for watching.